Okay, I think let's make a start. First of all, thank you all for coming. It's a Monday evening. It's also Sentosa, which is a long way away in Singapore terms. So thank you all for making the effort to come. Most of you I've not met. My name is Ravi. I'm Anjali's husband. My day job is a doctor, but today I have been roped in to do this. And the last time I actually helped with the delivery was many decades ago. I haven't done a birth for a long time. But today I have been roped in to actually help give birth to this book. So I've not had tuition. It's okay. So this book actually started in 2020 during the COVID time. So COVID time, I was working from home, usually in my underwear, and occasionally with a shorts on, if I had to dress up. Other people were binging on Netflix or, doom scrolling. But Anjali decided she wants to write a book. So COVID time is when all this started. And she spent 2020 writing. And in 2021, it was ready. So I knew nothing. I knew and still don't know very much about publishing. But for those of you who don't know, publishing can be as easy as basically you write the book or get ChatGPT to write it for you. And then you just print it out or you put it on Amazon as an ebook. Or there's the really hard way where you try and find an international trade publisher. And of course, Anjali just wants the hard way. So she spent 2022 just arranging for an international trade publisher and had quite a few rejections. And that's not as bad as it seems because she's in good company. Harry Potter was rejected quite a number of times. Dune was also rejected. And but finally she got a contract with Hachette. Hachette's quite a big international publishing group, which is quite a big thing. And we were expecting that in 2023 that the book would actually be launched. And we had 5 dates with Amazon. All of them were cancelled. And that is because, as most of you are corporates here, you know that when you're doing something, the person who has the last decision on it is actually not you. It's your legal counsel. So they will say yes or no to various things. And so I think 2023 was spent changing colons to semicolons, having a comma here so she wouldn't get sort of sued, all those sorts of things. And then finally this year in 15th of August, the book was published. So we were very grateful for that. And the book's actually done pretty well. So it's just, I think, in less than a month, it's in Amazon. It's also in the Straits Times as a bestseller in the business section. And I think recently Anjali got a email from this group, which is called the Next Big Idea Club, which is in the US. And these are books that are curated by people like Daniel Pink and Adam Grant and Malcolm Gladwell. So a book has been curated to go onto their list, which is pretty good. Actually, it's really good. And so it's great. So we're very happy that we can launch the book now, and it's available for sale. So with that, I think we will start the book launch, and we can't start a book launch on storytelling without a story, so I'm going to get Anjali to start with the first story.
Thank you so much. Making it to Sentosa on a Monday evening is not easy, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Almost all of you have tell me many stories. But this is slightly overwhelming and intimidating for me. My mom is here with me. So, welcome, Mama. And my husband often is the only person who can pick when I'm faffing around in a story. When I'm telling something factually incorrect or I'm kind of going off topic, he's the one who'll put his glasses down and he's saying, you're not making the point. Go back to it again. So this is intimidating for me because both my mother, who has really taught me everything I know, and my husband, who has really continued that streak, are here. So it's intimidating, but I'll give it a go. I'll try telling you a story. So the story I want to start off today with is in chapter 2 of the book. It's called The Connection Conundrum. I wanted to tell a very smart, intelligent, strategic story, but Gaia, who's also here and you'll get to meet later, told me I should go a little bit lighthearted, easy, and so did my husband. So I'll start with an easy story. Okay, so this happened in September 2014, and I had woken up at 4 a.m. in the morning. No, I don't wake up every day that time, but on this particular day, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I had to catch a flight to Kuala Lumpur to give a keynote on the same day. Working moms make stupid choices like that all the time. They wake up and they decide to leave the same morning because they want to spend one more night with their little one. My little one, who's 17, is not little anymore, also in the audience. Please remember, I did all those things for you. So I wake up and I get to the airport because Kuala Lumpur is just 45 minutes from here on a flight. So I land at Kuala Lumpur airport well within time, all's working okay, and then I see the immigration queues. And they are long. They are so long that no matter what I do, there is no way I will get to the venue on time. And somehow I am gathering the courage to call the client and tell him, I'm going to be late. Please hold the fort for me. It is the opening keynote, but I'm going to be late. So the client said, no problem, do whatever you can. So I still have this vivid memory of making it just at 8:55 to the venue and running in the corridor and seeing the AV gentleman there with a microphone in his hand, and he gave me one look and he rolled his eyes and he said, one, you've arrived late. Two, you've arrived in a dress. Where exactly am I meant to hook this microphone? There is no belt, there's no pant. What is going on? So I said to him, you know what? I always have this black thread here. It's a religious thread. I said, just hook it up here. It's okay. I'll manage. So he puts the microphone there, and then I get up on the stage. I take one step, and then I can feel that there is somebody tapping here. And I'm like, what now? And he says, can you take off your earrings? So those of you who know me, I love wearing big earrings. So he says, take off those earrings. They're interfering with the audio-visual. And I'm like, okay, fine. Take off the earrings. And I go up on the stage, and I start delivering the keynote. Finally, giving the keynote I'm there for. But within a few minutes, I feel like I'm taller on one leg than the other, and something's not working. And then when I look down, my heel's broken. And I am totally embarrassed, and I'm like, okay, could I have woken up at 1 o'clock? Could I have prepared more? Nothing seems to work. This is just how it is. I felt quite demotivated that day. I delivered the talk bare feet. I came back, spent the day with Maya. And 2 days later, Maya's my daughter, 2 days later, I told a client of mine in a conversation, I felt so stupid. And she said to me, in fact, you should tell that story. What is the chance? You should tell that story in all women initiatives and platforms, because what is the chance a man would leave on the same day? What is the chance he'll arrive at a conference venue in a dress? What is the chance he'll have earrings on? And what is the chance that his heel would get broken up on the stage? This is a story that will resonate with a lot of women. So it became a staple story. I told it to many clients in many women-led platforms. In fact, one of the conferences in New York I was invited to speak for was because of this particular story. This story gets a lot of clap. People love it. But here's the truth about this story. This story is a total dud, failure, falls on deaf ears in a boardroom. The point I'm trying to make is that this story might have got a physiological reaction from you here. You went, oh, no. But in a boardroom, you'll roll your eyes where you're trying to drive the profit and trying to build efficiency, productivity, and reputation. You'll say to me, great story, but what am I going to do with it? That is really the core essence of the book that I have written. Why some stories drive your success at work, but others don't. I think with this, I'm going to let my dear husband and the moderator for tonight to ask me a few questions about the book.
So I'm not the husband tonight, okay? I'm just the moderator. And, so I think, with any book, if I go to a bookstore, if I look at a book, there's got to be a reason for me to pick it up. And I think maybe we could address that. So if you're at an airport, and there are very few bookstores in airports now, but if you happen to find one, you're standing at a bookstore, it's the thing, and there are usually a lot of business books. So the thing is, why pick this book? Why would someone, what's different about this, which amongst a sea of business books?
Okay, so I think it's a very valid question because it's not the first book that is written on storytelling. The first book that got written in storytelling was back in 2004. So it's been many, many years. And I think the book has earned its title in its hyper-targetedness. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that this is not storytelling. This is strategic storytelling. So if you work in a corporate organization, this is the book for you. Because guess what? Nobody is going to put their boardroom presentation and the yells and the bosses yelling and shouting from the bosses, or the team members interrogating you, recorded and put it on YouTube so that you can learn from it. That is not available in public domain. But what is available in public domain is this really inspirational, high character, high emotion kind of a storytelling, which is very easily available. You can learn a lot of techniques on that, but you don't really have anywhere where you can learn as to what happens in the boardroom. And majority of you here today are from the corporate organization, and you know that our success gets determined based on what happens in the boardroom, not what happens on the stage. So I think it is written for people who are in that boardroom and wanting to know, how do I tell a story in the most effective way? This is the book that drives success for that kind of an audience, because inspiration is one thing, but really navigating the darkness of the corporate boardroom where the boss looks at the watch and looks at you at the same time and says, can you just get to the point, is a tough place. And this book is for that person who wants to navigate that space really well.
The other thing is also, in terms of stories, you talk about framing stories. And so we have a story which may be used by a corporate leader, but also may be used by an employee. So the things, can you talk about how do you frame that for each of those individuals? Yeah,
so I think that was probably one of my biggest aha moments in the 10 years of doing the work that I do. And Sayu from Infineon is here. He is an amazing, amazing individual who before even, I know that this is to answer the question, not to promote my client, but I do have to acknowledge him. Before even the book launched, he helped promote my book so much. So thank you so much for your presence here today. He works for Infineon, and in 2016, Infineon, which is a semiconductor an organization that does test and assembly here for the semiconductor chip in Singapore, has a factory that has roughly about 2,000 people. They decided to make the factory a smart factory. For those of you who don't know, smart factory essentially just means lights down, robots work in that factory, okay? So when they decided to do that, the gentleman who was the head of the factory, Laurent, French gentleman, he asked me, can you build a story for people to support us, employees to support us, make this factory a smart factory? Because you can't make a factory a smart factory without the support of your team. You can get the robots, but who's going to make them work? Who's going to program them? Who's going to make sure that they do what they need to do? And who's going to supervise them? And I said, sure, but why are you turning the factory into a smart factory? And his response was, correct, but also the one that would never connect with the people. There is a fundamental difference between what is correct. I tell Maya all the time, study hard, do your work, that is correct. But do you think that connects with her? Absolutely not. It's the same principle. So you can say what is correct. His response was that we have to drive productivity. We have to produce more semiconductor chips than we are doing right now, because the demand for semiconductor chips is rising. So, our passports have semiconductor chips, our cars have semiconductor chips. I think in one car alone, there are I don't know how many, definitely more than 400 semiconductor chips, right? So there is a rise in demand. And no matter how many more people we get in this factory, we'll never be able to produce that many semiconductor chips. So we need to get robots in. He was correct. But would the employee find that thing exciting, that you're going to tell me to leave and get robots in, and I should support you in that great act that you want to pursue? And I said, no, but what will happen to the people? And when we went on that discovery, we realized that it was not essential for us to say goodbye to people, because people had this amazing opportunity to become supervisors of robots, granted they were willing to learn the way to do it. And we changed that entire narrative into smart factory for productivity. Yes, for organizations, that's correct. But for people, smart factory for you to become the supervisors of robots, or in other words, workforce of the future. And that just completely changed the way people approach that task. So the point I'm making is that often the organizational goals are limited to organizational success. But what a great leader does, or a person who really has the intent to to drive people's success as well, looks hard and long to the horizon and finds a positioning that also suits the employees. No organizational success has to be at the cost of employees. The organizational success can be with the employees. And I think that's where framing plays a huge role.
I think we're pretty good on time, so I don't know if anyone has a question. Maybe one question we can take. No need to be shy.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Elena. Here we go.
Elena.
Yeah.
My name is Elena. I know, Anjali, you are a very successful and driven woman, but there's definitely no success without failure. Tell us the story when you really failed. Maybe when you came on the stage, you came into the boardroom, you told your story, and it was like, eh.
I don't have to go far. People who witnessed my failure are in this room. Okay, here's when I bring this brand called Takeda out, okay? So there are many leaders from Takeda in this room today. It was a failure, but it was not really a failure. And I think that's what we really need to see. So it was not that long ago. I think earlier this year, we were trying to build a change narrative for a certain specific thing, a purpose we had in mind. And I was clear that we have to find an identity for the employees. We can't just say we are doing this because the organization will be successful. We have to figure out why should people put their effort into this thing. So Gaia, who's here, again, you'll meet her later, both of us started like, okay, what should we work on? What should we work on? And we really started to brainstorm, and we came up with an identity, which I thought was brilliant because I resonated with that identity, and I wanted to call them ravens, right? Because ravens are known to be one of the most intelligent birds, right? And they survive and they thrive, and nothing kills them. Like, they get through anything. They're resilient. So I built this whole identity on ravens, and I presented the identity with a lot of pride. Mahendra, who's later going to be launching my book, was in the audience as well. And I thought we did a great job. And then people started saying things like, I'm from Korea, and this is a bad luck bird. We don't want this bird because it is considered to be a bad luck bird for us. I'm like, oh, okay. Then somebody said, no, but it's such an ugly bird. Why would we want to be an ugly bird? And I was like, wow. So the truth is that both Guy and I got out of the boardroom, and poor Gaia, she came up and said, they didn't like it. You worked so hard and they didn't like it. I said, it's okay. Never mind. But the same day, Rosanna, who's also in the audience from Takeda, wrote to me and said to me that you were the best thing about this morning. They didn't like the bird, doesn't matter. But the whole narrative was the best thing that we actually heard. And it's not that Takeda has closed their doors on me. I still do work with them. So I think that was one of the little kind of, you do come across those little failures where sometimes no matter what you do, with what kind of an intent you do, something, especially in the Asia-Pacific context, some cultural nuance comes in. I didn't know in Korea they don't like raven, I didn't know it's a bad luck bird. And somewhere or the other you do make mistakes like that, but you learn and you live and you move on.
Okay, so maybe one last question I've got is, so a lot of people here from different backgrounds, different companies, and you've worked with a lot of people. So I think it'd be interesting to know what are the characteristics of successful people that you've worked with? What makes them good?
Storytelling primarily is used for inspiring and motivating and engaging, and all of that is true about storytelling. But that work is good work, but it's also dusty, old, and predictable work of storytelling. It's been done for such a long time. I think, after 10 years of work, I'm always looking for leaders who are able to take a calculated risk with me. What I mean by that is I can't show them previous projects that I've been successful with, but I'll say, I want to try this. I don't know if it'll work or no, and then they are able to take that calculated risk. I'm not saying risk, because risk is difficult when you have responsible for so many people, but I think they're able to try new things with me. I've done a lot of that work with Micron, where we've gone to Hiroshima for 18 months long projects where we actually use stories to find insight into what's happening in the culture. Ralph from Heineken is here today. He's constantly putting me in situations where I have to push myself to think and do new work, because he's himself so innovative and always at the leading edge of every technological advancement that comes out. So when he says, Anjali, this is emerging technology, this is about planet and society, this is not about productivity. And I'm like, okay, Ralph, I'm also learning with him. So it's leaders like them who are themselves wanting to not do the old and mundane and are willing to take the calculated risk. I think courage is the biggest factor. Last week, we made a narrative for one of the world's top companies. It's Fortune 100 company. And 24 hours before that narrative got told in France, the leader had cold feet and said, this is uncomfortable. I can't do it because I'm having to stand in front of 100 people and tell what went wrong. And a narrative demands that. A narrative demands you admit this went wrong, so we are going to change this. So I think courage is a big factor. This is also a perfect segue into the next segment of our evening today, which is where we're going to launch the book. In my 10 years of doing this work, I have come across just 15 leaders, actually 15 leaders who are worthy of a mention here, who have constantly given me that push to do new innovative work. I'm very pleased 2 of them are in the audience today. Chervi from Micron, who I first worked with about 8 years ago. She's here, and she has pushed me to do that innovative work. Chervi, as you can see, is the Vice President, People Strategy, Technology, and Talent Acquisition at Micron Technology. The other one is Dr. Mahendra Nayak. So Mahendra and I have known each other for only about a year or so, but within that year, he's given me many opportunities to really push my thinking. So I'd like to invite both of them to come and officially launch my book. Please. So the launch part is really simple. All you have to do is to open the ribbon, take the book out, and we'll have a photo. This might be a little hard. You can just trash the paper. It's okay. And then the book comes in a casing, and you can take it out of the case. There's a casing at the back. Oh, wow. So, yeah. So cool. Yeah. Okay, Mahendra, you can go and stand in the middle. All right. And, okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd request Mahendra and Chervi to say a few words about their experience and the magic of stories.
Great.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. A very good evening, everyone. It's such a privilege to be here among the audience and to celebrate for a really beautiful friends of mine. As I get to know about her book, I was sitting down to recount when was the first time that I get to work with her. Probably that's about 8 years ago. So at that time, we wanted to really be able to train sort of 40 highly skilled engineers to have a way to tell a story about how memories is made in Micron. And we're not talking about human memory. It's about semiconductor memory, right? Pretty dry, at the same time, extremely impactful. So with that work, definitely, we have engaged in workshops, designing the content, and these ladies have just a way to encourage even the most timid engineers to see their power in them. So what we saw after the workshop is that we witnessed the transformative power of so-called the storytelling. Definitely the engineers are so much more confident because now they have a language to communicate on the how to communicate. But what is important is that they have a new identity on how to connect deeper with others. It's about the identity. It's not about just making semiconductor memory. So with that, I was like, wow, that is the impact. And of course, in 2017, usually when I face with certain challenges, I call a few friends, and she's definitely one of those that I'll just ring a bell. I say, okay, our new president is coming on board, Sanjay to Microns, and he's coming to Singapore, and he want to meet all the women leaders. And we say, okay, we need to keep it tight. We're going to make these women leaders to do a 1-minute introductions through storytelling, 1 minute. And there's like 30 of us. And through this impactful 1 minute, the women were able to talk about their skill, their experience, their aspiration. And guess what? After that whole sessions, it's just a catalyst of many of the women in terms of their career opportunity. And I like to call upon a few of them that are here today, 4 of them. Would you like to stand up? Because they are the hero in telling that 1 minute story. Thank you so much. And of course, today, one of them is our Chief of Staff for President Sanjay. Yeah, so again, over the years, I think we continue to work on exciting work, and every time is so consistent in terms of the impact, in terms of the performance. Thank you so much. And of course, I was so thrilled when she told me about this, writing this book. I was like, finally, right? And when good stuff, you don't want to just contain it with a few. You want to be able to scale out and share with other people. Now I have a book and I'm going to bring it. I'm going to be in US in 2 weeks' time. I'm going to share this book because I know it's going to be such a powerful tool for anyone to have in their hand, right? Yeah. So I, again, wish her and the book great success. And definitely I know that myself, Micron team members and the leaders was able to find our voice through the storytelling. And I hope anybody who read this book now empowered with that voice. So congratulations again. Yeah.
Congratulations, Anjali. And Anjali, thank you so much for inviting me and the team here. And it is also making a mention of my name in your book. So that's the first for me. And I also want to clear the air about the Raven story. I absolutely loved it. Okay, I don't think it's a failure. It's a learning. Because the Raven story, for me personally, I love the movie Crow. I don't know if ever you watched it. Love the soundtrack of Crow. Brendan Lee, right? Brilliant. So I was thinking of all the possibilities of that. And then I was reminded by my team, may not be the best idea. It's bad omen somewhere, but I love the story. We will use that in some other context. So I'm here along with the Takeda Anjali cheerleader group. Michelle's here, that's Rosanna, Ted, and Lokesh. We worked very closely with Anjali over the last 1 year. And it all started off with probably a 30-minute assignment. Anjali was supposed to meet one of the teams. They had a business challenge. And the word spread, right? And I got to know about it. And Michelle got to know about it. And then over the next 9 months, you had 7 engagements, and you continue to have. And that's where we realized the power of storytelling. And the context for us from Takeda, a lot of you may not have heard about Takeda. It's a 240-year-old company, right? We are an innovative biopharmaceutical company. Just imagine over the centuries, we had to reinvent ourselves. We are among the global leaders in biopharmaceutical industry, ranked 10 or 11. But for us, when you look at the environment that where we operate in, it's rapidly evolving, the healthcare environment, the macroeconomic environment. So we also need to reinvent and refresh our narrative. And working with Anjali, we realized the importance of strategic storytelling. And I'm sure from this book, Anjali, you're going to reach out to many millions more. And I wish you all the success and the success of the book. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahendra, and thank you, Chervi. We've got just 2 short sections left for this evening, short segments, and then we will have some nice nibbles and drinks later on together. The next segment that I want to introduce you to is about talking about why do stories matter in the corporate world. And I thought the 2 people who I could invite to do this, who are most suited to this, are the ones that I have actually worked very deeply with on various things. So Wendy from Roche Diagnostics, Strategy and Innovation Lead, is here with us today. Wendy, would you please like to come? Thank you. And Michelle's here. Michelle Irvi, who's the Global Head to Access to Medicine, Takeda. And I think the way we're going to do this segment is really short, just about 10, 15 minutes, where both of them will read a very short section from the book. And then I'll ask them to share about their experience of working with storytelling and the impact, whichever way. Would you like to go first?
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here. So the passage that I'm going to read is actually on page 7, so it's the early part of the book. It says, in strategic storytelling, we are going to take you to the corporate boardroom, where the boss is looking at you and his watch simultaneously and asking you to get to the point. The team, though, agrees with you on the next change initiative, but does not align with you. Despite your best efforts, you're failing to achieve healthy levels of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the organization. Despite saying all the right things for an upcoming digital transformation, your audience has ignored you.
Thank you. You'd like to talk about your reflection on that section a little bit, Wendy?
I think these are some of the things that when I read it, it kind of reminded me of certain occurrences in not necessarily the boardroom, but in terms of the discussion with senior leaders, with peers, with team members. So I think one of the things you highlight here is whatever story we tell is how to make that connection. And whatever you write on the page as a reader, I am kind of trying to see where am I in the story. And these 4 bullet points, I feel that there are vivid experiences that would take me back to a moment where I would have experienced each one of these.
Wonderful. Thank you. Michelle?
So thank you, Anjali, and thank you, Wendy. So mine is on page 3. It's a bit earlier. Stories that work on social media almost always fail in the corporate boardrooms. I can contest to that. And there's a further problem. We train to believe that what we see on social media is what storytelling is. And in a way it is. Only not for most corporate boardrooms, which have a very different audience than social media.
Thank you. And your reflections on...
I think it's a hard journey. When I listen to this, I think about all the failures. And I think oh my golly gosh, I had a very forgiving audience. Okay. And I think essentially is sometimes externally it is easier. Especially when you communicate externally what you do, how you do it. And this kind of segment really speaks to what I was kind of experiencing, because we had no challenge in telling that story. It resonated with the external audience. It made meaning and had purpose. But my golly gosh, internally I had a huge challenge. Because I was trying to tell the same story and I couldn't get it. Why are people not getting this? Okay. And I really got frustrated, because I got frustrated in the sense that I've got one of the most amazing jobs. Okay. And I'm very thankful for that. But I couldn't understand how my internal audience in the company was not coming along. And then I realized after a workshop with Anjali, okay, saying we need to do something different here, is something is not working. And honestly, I was getting to a stage where my energy levels were getting low and I was kind of losing motivation and saying what do I need to do differently? What am I missing? Why am I not able to bring my internal audience in the company with me? And very often this is very high senior level. This is your executive teams. This is your boardrooms. And I had a challenge. And I realized, especially being in data and science, we get so intrigued with the elements of trying to prove a point of why this matters, what's your data points, how you position it, this is how you do it, missing the whole frame of who is your audience, why it matters to them, and then tell the story. So the good news is I do have a success story. So applying the principle, after we had the workshop, my team and myself with Anjali, we recently had a topic which is quite a difficult and a sensitive one to tell because it's not always good news. Okay, so I had two different audiences, same data points, same proof points, and I needed to tell them something is going to happen, which is not so great, but it's not such bad news, okay, and why they need to take notice of this. So the first one went okay, but I also think I had a forgiving audience to a certain element. Took a step back and saying okay, what do we need to do better? Take a step back. Let's just kind of reflect, listen again. The second one was at a boardroom level, and it was a success. Despite delivering a very difficult message of what is to come, what is to expect, the message resonated, the why was clear, and we walked out of that and we felt, yes, we've done it, okay? It wasn't a good story, but the fact was we had the positioning to why it was important and we spoke to the audience, but how we did that was very different. So that's my big learning and really kind of reflecting to what you were saying here in your book. We resonated externally, but internally we needed to adapt, and that is reframing your audience and the why.
Thank you so much. Wendy, you and I have witnessed the power of storytelling together for a little while now. I'd just like you to share your experience of working with stories, and particularly what gives you the courage to do such different kind of work in your organization, right? Because it's not easy. It requires a lot of courage to be able to tell a story. Most people prefer to remain within the safe zones of the corporate speak, because if nobody's going to praise you, nobody's going to say anything bad too, because you just say those things and then just navigate the situation and you get out. But I think particularly I want to know, I would like you to share the experience, where exactly, and how do you build that courage muscle internally for people to embrace that storytelling?
Thank you for the question. I have to say, probably the courage came from maybe taking baby steps. It started, actually, I got to meet Anjali when we, as Roche Diagnostics, and I think many organizations, went through our transformation. And my team, this function was a new function in our commercial setup. So I, as an individual, I really like pushing the boundaries, and that's just kind of part of my innate nature. So as we started this journey, I think I mentioned to Ralph earlier, people didn't know what the heck my team did. We weren't able to. We thought, the team felt like we had a good identity. We knew where we were going. But whatever we believed in, because we were the people that were all kind of dreamers, right? We were the people that were very comfortable living and exploring the land of the Wild Wild West. But we have 6,000 people behind us or next to us that really didn't understand what we were doing. So this is where the risk was probably low, because anyway, nobody knew what we were doing. So Anjali was highly recommended to come and actually really help shape our narrative. What is our identity in this new Wild Wild West of a small team, and how do we connect ourselves with the bigger organization? So we actually tried out I don't know if she tried it with you guys, right? We had the jabs and the hook, and it worked really well. So the team through the workshop, the work that you've done actually gave us our very proud, inspirational identity. So with that, positive experience, I mean, it wasn't just the storytelling, as I think you mentioned. It actually gave all of us a real clear identity to anchor the work we do and then to feel a sense of pride and purpose. So with that, the next big engagement we had was, then we kind of said, okay, this was great. How do we amplify this a little bit? So last year, I think for many of us whose headquarters is somewhere else and Asia Pacific headquarters here in Singapore. So for us, our headquarters is in Switzerland. And Asia Pacific, yes, I wouldn't say it's an afterthought, but it's a land of not very familiar with the proximity difference, language, culture, the funny food we eat, right? So we had the opportunity at one of our most senior global event to formulate kind of an APAC Day engagement. So instead of inviting all the senior leaders in the organization to come to Singapore, we also had our leadership team here in Asia Pacific to kind of go there. And then through this event is looking at what are some of the key stories? What do we actually want to tell? That we're not just, I mean, she often used the analogy, maybe some of you guys have heard, it's a little brother that has grown up. And what is our seat at the table? And how do we share with others that not only are we able to deliver what we have been known for, but what else can we do? How can we contribute? How can we play a bigger role? How do we have a louder voice? So from that engagement, I think when we had Anjali over, the team had worked really hard to pull out all the facts, all the data, to make a case. And Anjali just basically like, no, guys, like really, like put yourselves in their shoes. Are they going to be interested with such facts? And this is in a unique environment because it is with senior leaders, but it's almost like a mixture between boardroom and stage. So we took an approach to go through the inspiration route a bit. And our head of finance was part of this small team. He was uncomfortable. But it was a great success, and it actually resulted in some initiatives that is still ongoing. It was such a great success that this year, actually in October, we're going back to actually share some of the learnings, progress, results from this co-creation and co-leading this part of the journey. So I think the team's already engaging Anjali, say, okay, now we got to go back and tell part 2. So let's continue the story and see what the next chapter offers. So I think this is where storytelling, to me, of course, is to inspire, is to influence, but to me, the identity that it anchors us, having those vocabulary and it is such an important part. I mean, I know you say strategic storytelling, but it's actually a very fundamental element in strategy execution. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Look, I'll ask one last question to Michelle, and then we can wrap up the panel. Michelle, I want to know, you have a tough team. Michelle's one of those leaders who has a very tough team. I have experienced the toughness of the team. Now, how, you can as a leader say, this is the way we're going to go, we're going to tell stories, and we're going to do it this particular way. But your team is very analysis-driven, and the word story almost always makes them uncomfortable. We are unsure whether the discomfort arises from the fact that it's lack of courage or it is lack of belief in the power of storytelling. We're unsure of that. But I think my question to you is that how do you as a leader might have bought into the idea of storytelling, but often in an organization, your success is not the team's success. your team's success is your success. So how do you convince your team to use something that is not natural to them?
Sure. Okay. It's not easy. I think it's a lot of patience. Okay. I think also what happens is it's by learning. So since we've had the workshop with Anjali in January this year, we've got so many things ongoing and so many stories we need to tell at different levels in the organization. And the presentations comes, the business challenge comes, and what comes out, it's kind of, here's the old age same, kind of objective, we want this decision, we want this, here's the data points, here's this, a kind of normal flow. And then I push it back to the individuals in the team. I said, this is fantastic. I said, but why do you want to tell me this? What do you want to tell me? Okay. So it's kind of a lot of patience. Going back and forth and back and forth and leading a lot of lead time before your deadline. But I think the convincing element comes in when you've got a success that we've, especially with one of my team members recently, I could see also the motivation levels were getting very low because it's not nice to kind of do and reiterate a presentation 7, 8, 9, 10 times, okay? But I try not to do the presentation for them. They need to learn to do it. They need to do it themselves. They need to put it forward. And what then transpired is when it was a success with the audience is to celebrate that success with that individual to say, wow, what a great job you've done. This is fantastic. And to replicate that across the team and the other members so they can understand why the storytelling is there. So I think it's reinforcing, but a lot of patience. But I think the key skill that I would see with storytelling is resilience, okay? Is to continuously work, continuously drive, and continuously go back. Where I am today is I think I must have had an amazing forgiveness audience through my whole career, because where I am today, I thought I did a terrible job in storytelling. But I think where we are today and how the world is evolving, it's becoming so critical. So I think it's not something that comes naturally, honestly. I think it's something that you need to work on. And for that, my job is to coach my team, take them through the journey, give them the feedback, and share in that success, but also the failures. But I also share my failures with the team to say with them, I didn't do a good job here, so that they can also see it's a journey. To where one is, and you're going to make still failures and you're going to succeed, but to take them through that. And that's where we are at this current stage. And there's many other presentations in the background that's going on that this principle is being applied to. So I think it's a journey, but celebrating that and also making them feel that why it matters.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to thank both of you for your time. Thank you very much. We are at the last part of this evening, but I would not be wrong to say that it is one that is the most meaningful for me, the one that is most purposeful for me, and the one that is most gratifying for me. Daughters of Narrative. So last year, after we'd had one of our best, most successful business years, I sat down with my husband and I said, this is amazing. But next year is 10 years for the business. This year we celebrated our 10th anniversary. What next? And he says, what next? Like, you need to learn to stop. It's okay. This is good. And I'm like, no. I'm not talking about more and more work. I'm really happy. There's a book. The business is doing really well. I'm getting to learn so much. But something's missing, right? Somebody invested in me. Somebody showed faith in me. Somebody encouraged me. That is why I managed to get where I am. What's next for me? And then he asked me, what is it other than your work that you're most passionate about? And I straight away said, dogs and daughters. And at that time, we had 2 rescue dogs. We both looked at each other and we said, no more dogs, okay? This is enough. We cannot have one more dog. We are doing enough for dogs. And then I said to him, but it's also too late to have another daughter, isn't it? He's like, yeah, that too. I said, but we don't need to have daughter. There are many daughters that can become daughters of narrative. So when we started thinking about that, of course, my inspiration to want to daughters comes from my own daughter, who every day teaches me. And I think nobody's taught me more than my daughter has taught me, the patience and everything else. So I said, okay, so if it's daughters, what kind of a daughter do we want? This is one of those few times where you get to choose. They don't just land up. And I said, okay, well, my husband's a huge supporter of the region. So he says, within the region. I said, absolutely, within the region. I said, the one thing that matters the most is the attitude. The third thing that matters is like someone who has the potential, but with a little bit of our help and a little bit of our nudge, would be able to realize her potential. And God just has his ways. Soon I was in a conversation for a very different reason with Priyan, who's here today. My daughter's a dance teacher and an amazing artist himself. And I shared with him this desire. I also knew he has a sister. And I said, I suggested the idea. I said, what about we get Gaia to come and be with us? It was an exploratory idea. I wanted to take it the safe way, somebody I knew. And we started our 3-month project the very first project on Daughters of Narrative. The sole clear idea behind Daughters of Narratives was this. Somebody who is from the region, who has an amazing attitude, who has the potential, with a little bit of my help, will probably be able to do better in life. What is this better in life? It was very simple for us. Every time her daughter is exposed to an economic opportunity, she's able to leverage it. And I am so, so pleased that Gayatri, who I call Gaia with love, or sometimes even Lady Gaga, completed the very first successful program with us, or being with us. And I'd like for her to come here and share a little bit about her experience.
Thank you, Ansh. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gayatri Tavaraja from Batticaloa, Sri Lanka. And I've completed my Australian Foundation program in science. And now I will begin my bachelor's in exercise, health and rehabilitation science at the University of Brighton in the UK. Over the past few months, under the mentorship of Ms. Anjali Sharma, I've had the opportunity to attend client meetings, observe consultations, and deliver sessions. These valuable experience taught me lessons in professional conduct, client interaction, and the power of storytelling in business. With Anjali's guidance and bench support, I've developed my confidence and improved my video editing skills from basic to professional level of editing. I've also met inspiring individuals who helped me to step out of my comfort zone. I'm incredibly grateful to Anjali for pushing me to grow. I often say, Ansh, you sculpted me. As I move forward, I'm excited to start my studies and work towards becoming a successful physiotherapist. Thank you.
Request my own mother, because I'm her daughter, to now just come up and give a certificate to Gaia for completing her program with us. Please. Mama, aise khade ho. Thank you, Mama. Thank you, Gaia. We wish you all the very best. Thank you, everybody. I will now let you do the most important thing.
I'm going to wrap up with the most important thing, food and drinks. Please join us over there.
Please
Thank you all for coming.
Join us for drinks and foods this side, please. Thank you.